Okay, seeing it is 8 o'clock, I'm gonna call the meeting to order of the Finance Committee, Wednesday, February 14th, 2024. The clerk will please call the roll.
Council General.
Present.
Present. Quorum present. Is anyone here recording the meeting? Okay, we will begin with the review and approval of the meeting minutes of December 4th, 2023.
Move to waive the reading of the minutes and accept them as presented.
Second, motion made by Councilor Gallot, seconded by Councilor Kaczynskis to waive the reading of the minutes and accept them as presented. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11118, an order authorizing $106.24 payment of prior year's salary expenditure. This was the first time they're entertaining this in front of finance. And this has to do with the previous salary expense from DPW. Mayor Nicholson?
Thank you, Madam President. Yes, this individual had a step that he needed to be given. This is covering that cost of the previous fiscal year and making it so that we correct that oversight.
Okay, we have a letter from the mayor, we have the order to authorize the expenditure, and we have all the supporting documentation from the city auditor. Any?
Move to recommend authorizing the expenditure to full council.
Second, motion made by Councilor Gallot, seconded by Councilor Kaczynskis to recommend authorization to the full council. Is there discussion on the motion?
You get these quite often, so no.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say no. The motion passes. Item 11172, a measure to establish a special revenue fund under the provisions of Section 53K of Chapter 44 of the General Laws of the Commonwealth for the Waterford Street Community Center project. The mayor provided us with a letter explaining how this type of fund can be established and the process that was created just this past December. And then also provide us with a copy of that in the general laws, and then how that separate revenue fund would be established. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Madam President. That's a good synopsis of the situation. This is new this year under the supplemental budget closeout law bill that was passed by the legislature in December. That revenues for certain special purposes can be put into this different account rather than it having to fall to the general fund, waiting for it to free up in free cash next year and then expending it for that purpose after that. This allows us to put this in this fund in the interim time. You'll see that there's a new copy of the license agreement with Growing Places in there. There are certain provisions of this act that, you know, if it was a lease, certain rental payments couldn't go into this because rent falls to the general fund. This is for special, like, off-term revenue. A license is not a lease, therefore it's considered separate of that. A license is revocable on on an at-will notice. A lease is for a longer period of time. That's why the city council has to approve all leases, and the executive office is the only one who signs off on different licenses. So this is something that we couldn't do once we enter into long-term leases at that property, but it's something for at least now as different types of funding comes up. If there's a private grant, if there's a different source of funding that we can use to pay towards some of the renovations towards that new community center project, we can put that into this fund rather than having to accept the money, wait for it to fall to the general fund, and then take it out of free cash once that gets certified in October.
So we've done this similarly in the past with other things.
We've done special gift accounts in the past. Okay. It's kind of similar to that, but without the gift portion of it, just a different source of funding.
Okay, and then I have a question. So is Growing Places working towards a lease, or do they,
yes.
they remain with the license?
No, so they remain with the license for now.
Okay.
There's Waterford Street School does not fall under the protections of Article 97. It falls under the Public Land Protection Act, which does require us to get a survey done of the property and parcel out that use. That was already, the vote to take the land out of recreational use was actually done when the school was built, but it was not parceled out from the property that Wilder Field is on. So we've conducted a survey to parcel out that property. Once that parceling is done and the subdivision of that lot is done, we'll be before the council to request sending a legislative item to the general court as a home rule petition to remove for the change of use of that property, excuse me. So the Public Land Protection Act oversees the change of use of a building, so it's going from educational purposes to general municipal purposes. So that would have to go through under the protections of the Public Land Protection Act. We don't have to do a swap because it's not Article 97, because that vote was done when the school was built for educational purposes. So since we're changing education to municipal, that's where this vote has to happen. Once that is all done, then we'll be able to enter into a long-term lease.
So there's nothing to swap out. So that's why the license started, so we're able to.
Correct.
Okay. And then my other question is, so that fund, just for clarification, I believe you said it, but like, just for, that fund will continue after. Should there be any gifts or grants or anything else that needs to go into that fund, it can be used for all of the other purposes.
Yes.
And right now, it's just being used for this purpose of the license.
Yes, it would not be restricted to this.
It wouldn't be, right, so the lease will be collected differently and go where it needs to go when a lease is possible.
Yes.
A license agreement, it has to go there. 'Cause
Yeah, the lease would fall.
there's no lease.
A lease payment would fall to the general fund.
Not anything else. So in perpetuity, any kind of grants that were done to improve the building could fall to this instead of the general fund. Is that what you're saying in the future?
For
or
a
this
private grant. So it's the community center issued us a grant for $50,000 to put a new hood in the kitchen.
Okay.
That's a private grant from a non-public agency. Something like that is, if it's not a formal grant that we're receiving from a government entity, it's finding what account to put it in, where to make it go, so it doesn't fall to the general fund, and we don't run into the same situation we had with the opioid funds last year, where we had to take everything out of free cash after
We
it
have to
fell.
wait for the payment.
Our auditor, John Richard, too, can probably talk a little more on the fine-tooth details of it being the person who'd oversee the account, but
Yeah, basically, it's they say it's like a one-time payment. And if we have like a one-time payment, that's where it would go, basically, in that account. It's not like we don't have a lease agreement, whatever, lease payments would go in here, but like you said, licensing, I don't even think that can go in there, but
yeah, we're reviewing the options that are there, but this allows us more flexibility to get the money what we need for the construction projects.
Faster to
Yes.
the purpose instead of waiting for, as the process you said, falls
October.
Yeah,
Thank you.
October.
Okay. And then at that point, there would have to be a vote, we wouldn't have to move anything, they could just pay
Correct.
and.
Yep.
Okay.
And on another note, I'm looking into even lease payments, we might, I just read something that we might be able to put those in another account instead of having that hit the general fund. Again, if you put it in another account, you can keep it with that and pay for
Almost a revolving
improvements and
account.
all that.
Yeah.
But I'm looking into that right now.
Okay, so the purpose for this one will remain as everything is
Yes.
in here, as far as we know right now?
Yes, that's just the long-term planning after this phase is done.
Okay, thank you.
Move to recommend establishing a special revenue fund to the full council.
Second, motion made by Councilor Delarose, seconded by Councilor Kuzenskas to recommend establishment of the special revenue fund. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11173, a measure authorizing an intermunicipal agreement between the City of Gardner and Town of Westminster for veteran services. The mayor supplied us with a letter regarding the agreement. We have a copy of the agreement. And Mayor Nicholson, would you like to add anything else?
Thank you, Madam President. So we provide regional veteran services for Ashburnham, Westminster, Princeton, and Ashby, as well as obviously the City of Gardner. When you get into a regional agreement for veteran services, you trigger certain provisions in the general laws that require different minimum staffing levels for your office. This is actually the only office that has a minimum staffing level set by statute. For instance, when Lynette's predecessor, Phil Busso, was here, he was the only individual we had working in the Veteran Service Office. His numbers fluctuated between 100 veterans, so I think the lowest was 70 veterans that we were serving on Chapter 115. But it was only Gardner, so we only needed to have him there. The moment we added another town, there's actually a grid in the general laws that says that per residents of the district, not veteran population, but full population of it, you hit these trigger marks. So that's why we have to have a full-time veterans agent, a full-time assistant agent, and a full-time admin in the department, is because by law, that's the set minimum staffing that we have to do for the amount of towns that we're providing services for. But with those minimum staffing levels, there's a formula that comes up with how much we put into the IMAs that we have with the municipalities. So this is the increase based off of those formulas over the past 3 years that we've been doing this. And we started as a regional department 3 years ago. So this is the first reiteration of those regional services.
So I believe that Lynette has been here before at our meetings in the past to talk
Yes.
about this. We're aware of the staffing levels in the past too. Do you want to talk about Templeton in here?
Yes, so we authorized, the city council voted to authorize myself to sign an intermunicipal agreement with the town of Templeton. Lynette had negotiated that with their town administrator. And the town administrator was all sold on it, wanted us to move forward on it. It was before the council and the Templeton Select Board on the same evening. The council voted to authorize the city to move forward with it, and authorize me to sign it in the event that the negotiations were completed. And then Templeton voted against entering into it because they wanted to try having their own VSO on their own. They've gone through 4 VSOs since then, but we haven't explored going back into a regional system for that. So while that authorization vote was there, the authorization was to sign in the event that the IMA was completed. It was never completed, therefore it just went to the wayside.
Okay, yeah, I recognize that it doesn't affect this, but it was a
No, it was good to,
and I appreciate the explanation of it.
Yep.
Because, I think we have a pretty unique veterans agent system in Gardner with these municipal agreements, and I just, it's just interesting to see the process, how it goes, but it's been a really good thing for the city, in my opinion, so.
yeah. It is something that the new Secretariat of Veteran Services is looking at, using us as a model for these other communities. We're not the only district in the state, and we're also not the biggest district in the state, but the services that we're providing right now are actually being used to help set benchmarks for best practices programs issued by DVS, different other policy initiatives that have come out from DVS. That's why Lynette's been appointed by the governor to 4 different advisory committees on veteran services, based off of the work that she's doing here. So it's been really helpful for us too.
I think we're lucky to have Lynette here, and she's talked about how it's worked. She's has glowing remarks that it's going well. So I will move to recommend to the full council to authorize the intermunicipal agreement with Westminster.
Second, motion made by Councilor Donald, seconded by Councilor Kazinskas to recommend authorization of the intermunicipal agreement with Westminster. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11174, a measure authorizing an intermunicipal agreement between the City of Gardner and Town of Ashburnham for veteran services. This is almost identical to the previous one.
It's the same answer as the previous one as well,
Okay.
Madam President.
Any
That being said, I move to authorize this intermunicipal agreement with Ashburnham.
motion made by Councilor Donald, seconded by Councilor Kazinskas to recommend authorization of the intermunicipal agreement with the Town of Ashburnham. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Item 11187, a measure relative to the March 5th, 2024 presidential primary election order. We typically get these orders just for the public watching before each election, depending on what kind of election it is. Clerk Sirfan, do you have anything to add about your order? No. Okay. Any questions, comments from the committee?
As you said, this is pretty standard, so I move to recommend passing the measure to the full council.
Motion made by Council, second. Motion made by Councilor Donlat, seconded by Councilor Kazinskas to recommend passing of the measure to the full council. Is there discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Entertain motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilor Donlat, seconded by Councilor Kazinskas to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion passes. Meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, everyone.